Less than 3% of you people read books.
Google me, bitch! Google me!
Rudy's Revelation.
They cheat. They cheat. I don't make money from China. You do.
Hey everybody, it is July 4th, 2024. Happy Independence Day. For those of you who heard me yesterday on the Alex Jones Show, welcome. And everyone else, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Top stories today. Well, Joe Biden might step aside and relinquish the Democratic nomination for president. Or more likely, he will be removed. And the Democrats and intelligence agencies are signaling that. Trump's polling is up amid the Democrat disarray. And go figure, the United States says Ukraine is a country plagued historically with corruption. So why are we sending billions, hundreds of billions of dollars there almost annually? So I'll be talking about these and more headlines coming up right now. All right, the first headline up today in the New York Post: Biden admits he may have to drop out in days if post-debate events don't go well. I'm going to be racing through the headlines. We've got a lot of cover today, and it is Independence Day, so there's much festivities planned. So there is an inkling that Joe Biden may step aside and relinquish the nomination, more than likely to Kamala Harris. We'll get into that in just a second. But I think this is unlikely. I think what we have signaled here today is that he may, if he wants to retain his legacy, but there's too much at stake here, so I think he may be removed. And as I said, the Democrats and even his cabinet has signaled the willingness to go to the 25th Amendment, which I think was put together, nurtured for him, not necessarily for Trump. So I think that might be one of the ways he's removed. Again, impeachment is also under the table. As I said yesterday on the Alex Jones Show, that overwhelming evidence could materialize thanks to the intelligence agencies, and the Democrats might have another avenue to remove President Biden from the presidency. That would leave Kamala Harris as president for a few months, and then an incoming president would obviously take over in January. So that leaves the ticket open, perhaps, to other Democrats. People are talking about Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom, Michelle Obama. We'll have to see. I think that's all immaterial because I think Trump is going to win. And I think what we have to worry about, if Trump is posed to win, what's going to happen next? Because they're not going to let Trump take office. It's not going to be that easy. So moving over to an article here from OAN, and I usually don't quote One American News, but this is important because they are quoting other papers here. Other media: White House aides concede that Biden must quickly demonstrate mental fitness or plan efforts to force his removal. There it is. OAN goes on to say President Joe Biden's senior aides said on Wednesday that they have accepted the dire warnings received this week from prominent members of the Democratic Party, either promptly prove Biden is qualified for office, which he isn't, or face a major push to remove him from office, which I think is the likely scenario here. It goes on to say, according to two people familiar with the matter, which isn't good journalism, obviously, with the conversations who spoke with the Washington Post on Wednesday, Biden began discreetly reaching out to allies in recent days, acknowledging that he is going through a difficult time and that he needs to show voters that he is qualified for the position due to the growing concerns from the Capitol Hill, prominent donors, and senior party strategists, including some of his own advisors. All of this is going to be hinging on tomorrow's interview with George Stephanopoulos. Now, he's had other interviews with ABC and Stephanopoulos, and if you look, those interviews made him look very presidential. They're very edited, obviously, and he comes across as very cogent. That's not Joe Biden. They can make him look that way. Obviously, they've been doing this for years, trying to make Joe Biden look like he's got all his faculties and actually he's very astute, which he isn't. If you look at him walk, particularly that's the giveaway, he walks like someone with dementia. So, it doesn't matter what comes out of his mouth. He could read from a teleprompter, and they can juice him up and he could read from note cards. And just recently, if you did watch the debate, looked like he had an earpiece in, he kept touching his ear. But also, it seemed, and many people noticed that he was flipping through notes, which he wasn't supposed to have. So even with those illicit aids, he still couldn't function. Going on to Article 3 here from the Washington Post, Democrats begin to consider Harris at the top of their ticket. This, again, is not surprising because to keep the money in the pot, they'd have to go to Kamala Harris. You can't sidestep Kamala Harris. There's no way you're going to threaten the majority of the black vote, particularly the black woman vote, a lot of the woman vote. So this is a very sticky situation. Don't forget that Kamala Harris was Biden's insurance policy for removal. He would obviously, it's a DEI hire, but she is so incompetent that people, particularly on the Republican side, but also on the Democrat side, would be reluctant to remove him either through impeachment or whatever because they don't want Kamala Harris. She is in no position in an intellectual capacity to lead the country. And someone also brought something up on the Alex Jones show yesterday that is she the whore of Babylon? Could be. I mean, if you read your Bible and you read Revelation, this is something I hadn't considered, which obviously she is a whore because she was, playing with Willie. All right, we're going to move on to other headlines here from the AFP. White House says zero chance Biden will withdraw. And then the New York Post says Democrat governors rally around Biden after debate debacle, says he's in it to win it. Now, they did have some very loyal Democrats that came out in a press conference, including Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, or Delaware, excuse me, that said, and he was also on Face the Nation last week, saying, oh, Biden's fit, he's in it to win it, etc. But absent was some of the governors who attended the meeting but did not come out publicly to support Biden. And that was Gavin Newsom and J.D. Pritzker from Illinois, two people that could be skulking around looking at the 2024 nomination. A lot of people hypothesize that Gavin Newsom is going to wait till 2028 because what's going to happen here is very risky. If the way it plays out in my theory is that Biden will be removed as president, Kamala Harris will be president until January on the condition that she won't run on the 2024 ticket. That'll leave the ticket open for the nomination or the nominating procedure at the Democrat convention to put in somebody else. I think Gavin Newsom may shy away, but he's a political animal. So if they dangle it in front of him, he could do it. There's also Michelle Obama. There's Hillary Clinton. There's J.D. Pritzker. All these things are in the works here. Moving on to several articles here from Mediaite, which is great. I never saw Mediaite go against the Dems so hard. Trump caught on video calling Biden an old broken down pile of crap, says Kamala Harris is so fucking bad. So this is this is very interesting to say the least. Not surprising from Trump. Obviously, this was caught on not hidden camera, but this wasn't a formal statement. This was him on the golf course. Going back to the article here, though, Joe Biden is absolutely not pulling out of the presidential race, his spokeswoman said, mounted following his disastrous debate performance. Trump. I'm sorry. This is from the AFP article. Moving on to other headlines here. The New York Post, ex-New York Times executive editor blasts DC reporters for roles in Biden cover-up. Simply astounding. Now, this person is talking about the fact that the DC media reporters at al that have witnessed Biden's decline have said nothing. Now, a lot of, we should really even say just Peter Doocy. I'm having a trouble with my stream here, so excuse me. It's a little distracting. The New York Post reports this, and the ex-New York Times editor blasted DC reporters because, except for Peter Doocy, from Fox, he was the only one that was really calling out Biden's mental acuity and problems with it. We've been witnessing this for years, and as I continually say, he's not the man he was 4 years ago. He wasn't the man he was a year ago or 6 months ago or even a month ago. So his decline is becoming more and more rapid, and that's what people have problems with, is that if he's declining, they don't want to put somebody like that back into the Oval Office. Or, to be honest with you, since the Hur report, the special counsel report surrounding his documents case, the classified documents case with Joe Biden, is that those audio tapes or that videotape should be released of those interviews, because that clearly states that he's not only not fit to be the nominee for the Democrats going into 2024 presidential election, but he's not fit to be president. So he should be removed with the 25th Amendment. That is the most likely course of action, I think, for the country and not just for the Democrats. Moving on to other articles from the Mediaite website, James Carville advises Democrat donors to freeze contributions to candidates backing Biden. If we don't do something about this, ampersand, we know what's going to happen. Well, we know what's going to happen. So basically what Carville is saying, and Carville has been the megaphone here because he's a Democratic strategist, saying that there's no path to win doing what we're doing. So the way the Democrats have been winning lately is by backing Biden, Democrats backing Biden when he's obviously not fit for office. And the way Democrats have won previously is they get all their ducks in a row and everybody is on the same page. And so the fact that there's disarray within the Democrat Party, Carville is saying the donor class, which controls the Democrat Party and really controls the Rhino Republicans as well, is the donor class has to take action not only against Biden, but against the other Democrats that are backing Biden or Biden's possible candidacy, which at this, as I said, at this point, his candidacy should be over, and we should be discussing whether or not he can even stay as president. So bear with me just a second here. I'm trying to fix what's going on with Rumble because it doesn't seem to be streaming. And I don't know what happened here. Let's see. It seems to be streaming. I don't know. All right, I'm going to go on with the headlines here. I don't know if I should rejigger this. All right, let's go on. All right, next article up here is from Mediaite. That's inappropriate White House press briefing on Biden's health derailed by reporter yelling out, "Is he awake?" NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell asked if Biden had a duty to review data like polling information that's coming in, donor information, that fears and concerns and anxieties expressed by Democrats. And Jean-Pierre asked for a clarification. You're saying that he's absolutely running, said O'Donnell, and Jean-Pierre interjected, well, he's saying that, and I'm sharing that. I'm sharing with you his view, and we would invite the president to come here and tell us that directly, said O'Donnell. Noted, Kelly, said Jean-Pierre. If he's awake, called out a male reporter from behind O'Donnell, drawing that's inappropriate rebuke from Corinne Jean-Pierre. So I'm just troubled that, in fact, I'm not streaming. It doesn't, my monitor doesn't say that I'm streaming here, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. And for some reason, if there's something going on with my OBS, this has happened previously before. So next article up here from Axios, New York Times poll sounds fresh alarms as Biden vows to stay in the race. Former President Trump is leading President Biden 49-43 among likely voters in the latest New York Times Siena College poll, a 3-point swing from Trump since the debate and the largest lead in the survey since 2015. Why it matters, perhaps no single poll carries more weight among Democratic elites who have spent the last week panicking over whether Biden should withdraw from the race after his disastrous debate performance. The highly anticipated post-debate poll detonated in the same hour that Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris dialed in the campaign call, tried to reassure staffers about the state of Biden's candidacy. All right, I think I figured out. You know what my problem is with Rumble? Rumble will sign me out. And I just want to see if that's the case. No, I'm still signed in. So I don't know what's happening, why I'm not streaming there. So if I am, stay with me now. Moving on to other headlines here from the Wall Street Journal. Trump expands lead over Biden as age worries grow. Wall Street Journal poll finds the former president is now ahead by 6 points, with 80% saying the incumbent is too old to run. Moving on to a headline here. Before I go to the New York Times here, which is an interesting article, I just have to say that this is the poll, 80% of the electorate, and it has to be measured with the fact is they also think that Biden is, Trump is also too old to run. So there are some questions there. I don't disparage that, but the fact is 80% of the electorate feels Biden is too old to run. And that's important. He is too old to run, and it's not just his age, it's the fact that his mental acuity is shot. The way he walks is an indicator that there is some senility there. So we need to go on with the story. This is a news story here from the New York Times. Why a new conservative brain trust is resettling across America. Pro-Trump professionals aren't just talking about remaking Western civilization. Some are uprooting their lives to show that they mean it. And I'm just going to go right into the article here. The Claremont Institute has been located in Southern California since its founding in the late 1970s. From its perch in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, it has become a leading intellectual center of the pro-Trump right. Without fanfare, however, some Claremont key figures have been leaving California to find ideological friendlier climes. Now, if you don't know anything about the Claremont Institute, it's not a right, it's right in meaning it's conservative, but the certain brand of conservatism, which is really libertarian leading, has to be noted because this is what the Tea Party is and this is what the Trump movement is. It's a libertarian-minded conservative party, or branch of the conservative party, even though Trump isn't necessarily a conservative himself. He's more of a moderate. In other words, he likes to spend. Going on with this article, many of the young activists and thinkers who have risen under his influence see themselves as part of a project that goes far beyond electoral politics. Rather, it is a movement to reclaim the values of Western civilizations as they see it, the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, etc. Their ambitions paint a picture of the country that that they want should Mr. Trump return to the White House, one driven by their vision of Christian values. With larger families and fewer immigrants, they foresee an aesthetic landscape to match with more classical architecture and a revived conservative art movement and men wearing traditional suits. I don't necessarily agree with that, but what have you. Their vision includes stronger local leadership and weathered national administrative state. I agree with that. Prompting them to celebrate last week when the Supreme Court effectively ended the Chevron deference, which could lead to the weakening of thousands of federal rules on the environment and worker protection and beyond. The Chevron deference is really against the climate change nutcases using climate change or their idea of climate change as a cudgel to beat cheap energy into the dust, because there is no way with a larger reliance on technology and now with AI that solar and wind power is going to generate enough electricity to power those things for the majority of the populace. It might do so for a few elite, that and nuclear energy, but it's not necessarily about everybody likes a clean environment, everybody likes clean water, and the new party is not the party of the corporations, of the elite. The new party is a populist party, as many people have pointed out. So the Republicans are taking over. This brand of republicanism is taking over, and we like clean air, clean water. We don't like BPAs in our water, and we don't like chemicals, all sorts of atrazine and stuff in the air. We don't like acid rain. We don't like any of this stuff. But we don't want to use the idea of climate change to say you can't burn fossil fuel. In any case, the article continues to say, fed up by what they see as an increasingly hostile and disordered secular culture. Indeed, many are moving to what they view as more welcoming states and regions battling for American society from conservative fortresses, quote unquote. Some see themselves as participants in and advocates for a great sort a societal reordering in which conservative and liberals naturally divide into more homogeneous communities and areas. So it's the same thing with what you see about portions of Oregon wanting to separate from that state. The eastern part of Oregon, which is traditionally more conservative, and that part of Oregon wants to secede and join Idaho, if you didn't know about that. So moving on to other articles, here's from Gallup poll, America's pride remains near record low. Republicans continue to express more pride in the U.S. than Democrats and independents. And those stats shown here, currently 59% of Republicans, 34% of Democrats, and 36% of independents say they're extremely proud to be American. The 25% gap in extreme pride between Republicans and Democrats. Not surprising, because Democrats and liberals are more likely to go along with, I'm having problems with my streaming software. I don't know. I might have to record this whole thing again. I hope that's not the case. In any case, liberals buy into all this nonsense with slavery and the Civil War, which happened over 100 years ago. The 1619 Project, which asserts that slaves built America, which they really didn't do. The slaves were mostly, not saying that there weren't slaves in the North, but they weren't on an industrial scale like they were in the South, which were used predominantly for textiles and shipping those commodities to Britain. So there was a trade between Britain, and it was actually Britain that fomented the Civil War, trade between Britain and the South for these agricultural products. That really spurred on the industrial slavery that we saw in the American South that we didn't really see anywhere else. Moving on here, Newsom shocks California politics by scrapping crime measure. This is just about, what was the proposition? I think it was 47 that, Proposition 47, the decade-old, reclassified some nonviolent drug and property crimes as misdemeanors rather than felonies. And it has put California in the shitter. But he hasn't. The governor sided with pro-business moderates who advocated for tightening penalties for crimes, including repeat shoplifting, while pitting him against progressives who raised concerns about racial disparities and arrests and what have you. But basically what they're saying here is Article 47 will be remanded and changed because of the district attorneys in California says is ruining, and actually Gavin Newsom was trying to broker some sort of compromise between Democrats, the progressives, and the attorneys general, but most people voted along, or seem to be voting along with 47, or will vote along with the new rule, which the attorneys wanted, which is to strengthen some of the laws going back to property crime and drug crime as being an arrestable offense, because the homelessness and drug use and the property crime that results from that, shoplifting, etc., has gotten out of control. And the fact is, these people are not only, committing crime, but they're also camped out in the sidewalk in front of businesses. The story also goes on to say, though, he faulted the District Attorneys Association with backing a measure that would provide policies from the era of mass incarceration and valid war on drugs. Greg Totten, the head of the District Attorneys Group, took a victory lap. We are pleased the governor and the legislator have dropped their countermeasures and welcome them to join our campaign to responsibly amend Proposition 47 to deal with the retail theft, the fentanyl crisis, and homelessness, as I just said. Before I go into the Hill article, I just got to say is that there is a separation between church and state, but I think everybody should be taught the Bible. So I don't want to come across as a thumper here. I'm not a thumper. I just want to say that I think that there's nothing wrong with bringing back religious-based morals, because the secularists have failed in building a real moral compass. They say, well, you don't need the Bible to know morals. I beg to differ. You need to know the Bible. You don't have to be a Christian or follow the Bible. But biblical push in schools poses major tests for separation in church and state. You can teach the Bible in school. You just can't say. You could also teach the Quran, which I advise, and others. So this is big news here. ABC News, fourth human case of bird flu linked to dairy cow outbreak. CDC, the case was confirmed in a dairy worker. Fourth human case in Colorado. Previously, one human case had been reported in Texas and two in Michigan. As with the previous cases, the patient is a dairy farmer. Tested positive. The patient reported eye symptoms only. They received treatment, antiviral, and now the patient is fine. What I do want to add here is the fact that they're just prepping this. That's why it's in the news all the time. The only thing they have to do, and I believe this is going to be the case if Trump is poised to win, all they have to do is introduce a humanized version or strain of H5N1. And then all of a sudden, people have it and it's spreading from human to human now. And then it's going to be a big, huge thing. And obviously, the gain of function researched version is going to be more deadly, and cause more morbidity. Moving on to other articles here from Barron's, Putin and Xi advance anti-West alliance at Central Asian Summit. Not surprising, we push Russia and China together. The leaders of Russia, the story goes on to say, and China Thursday urged their allies and partners to resist malign external influence advancing their shared anti-Western agenda at a regional summit in Central Asia. Malign external influence, and that is apparent in Ukraine. Not only fostering the war in Ukraine, but poking the bear, so to speak, continually antagonizing the Russians. Which brings us to our next story. Daily Mail, Ukraine is too corrupt to join NATO, U.S. says, a major blow to Zelensky. And boost for Putin, Ukraine is currently too corrupt to join NATO, the U.S. has warned. We know all this. Why do you think that whole thing with Biden firing the prosecutor? They were anti-corruption prosecutors when the West adopted Ukraine and took it out of the sphere of influence from Russia. They insisted, before the IMF started moving loans and everything and moving money to Ukraine, they insisted that Ukraine was corrupt, and the only way they could rightfully guaranteed loans from the IMF and others to Ukraine, which is essentially broke, they don't have any money because they're corrupt, is to fight corruption. And that's what the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, that Biden had fired, was one of the anti-corruption prosecutors that was put in by the West. And the reason he had him fired, and it was actually extortion because it withheld U.S. aid to Ukraine, $1 billion worth, is because the anti-corruption prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, was looking into Burisma and corruption there, particularly connected with the vice president's son at the time, Hunter Biden. And that's where that whole thing comes from. But corruption, among other issues, has been a major thorn in Ukrainian leaders' side, blocking further relations with the West from developing. In 2022, after Ukraine formally applied to EU accession, the EU Commission wrote that Ukraine, while preventing and combating corruption, has been particularly high on the Ukrainian reform agenda since the Revolution of Dignity in 2014. That's the Maidan Revolution. Corruption remains a serious challenge. Of course it does. And that's why the Bidens were so interested in it. A lot of Democrats were so interested in it because they were laundering money through that. Your taxpayer dollars that was supposed to be aid for Ukraine was laundered back through FTX back to the Democrats. So they're taking your tax dollars and it's going back to Democratic politicians, ostensibly, or I suspect. All right, a couple more articles here. Daily Mail, Ozempic could make you blind, warn experts. A worrying studies find patients on the drug are more likely to suffer irreversible optic nerve damage, among other things. Ozempic may be a wonder drug for diabetes and for weight loss. However, there are warnings and there are problems with all pharmaceuticals, is that it may fix one problem but cause four others. Controversial rapper launches clothing line that protects from 5G dust. This is from the UK Metro. The music star, whatever her name is, controversial rapper, the music star real name, Athenga Maya Arapragazam, fittingly announced the fashion brand Omni on the right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones' notorious conspiracy website InfoWars. She explained the silver ponchos would protect the wearers from nanoparticles, which she called evil dust. The thing is that Google developed smart dust a long time ago. And it was suspected that they were putting it in Kit Kats when Google partnered with Kit Kat for some reason right before Halloween. And apparently they could put smart dust on anything. It doesn't have to be an actual circuit, just like with nanoparticles that build circuitry inside you, that they're self-assembling nanoparticles and dust and things like this. So you don't need to have actual silicon chips manufactured to conduct and relay frequency. Frequency can change the pattern of things. Vibration is a very serious thing, and but that and the reverberation of light particles, et cetera, I don't want to devolve into that, but they realize that frequency can affect matter, and so it doesn't really matter if it's an actual circuit board or what. They could just put receptive smart dust that will conduct from this frequency. All right, I hope this went out live. I'm a little hesitant. I hope I don't have to go through this all again, because this has happened a couple of times before where it says it's streaming and recording, and then afterwards I found out it did neither. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, share the podcast, click that notification icon. Check out my other website, libpop.org. Don't forget you're under attack psychologically and biologically. I'm live every day, or try to be live every day, 10 a.m., around 10 a.m., usually a little after on Rumble. So don't forget to stay hip to the trick, and I'll see you tomorrow. Respect.
Google me, bitch! Google me!
This is all a conspiracy. Don't you know that it's a conspiracy there?
Rudy's Revelation.